welcome to the Sustainable Living Podcast. Emily Jurdy here, and we are going to be talking zero waste movement today. And I know Mariana will chime in at the end with some of her amazing thoughts. I thought this was a really important topic because it really is gaining momentum. I was perusing through Instagram, and there are so many amazing zero waste people to follow. So just search hashtag zero waste, or there's several Instagram people who actually you just search people zero waste, and there's some really amazing Instagram that give really great resources, ideas on how to create a zero waste home. I have to admit, zero waste I was really, really good at it before I had our son, and it is somewhat time consuming, but once you get in the routine, it's super easy. I shouldn't say that. It's not super easy. I mean, it is a commitment, but you can at least make huge strides with zero waste. You might not get all the way down to zero, but especially considering food packaging is usually the biggest one. And here, moving to Colorado, they don't have food cooperatives like they did in Minnesota. So in Minnesota, they had food cooperatives with huge bulk. So the waste of the packaging was much smaller because they bought it in bulk, poured it into the containers. Of course, those were plastic. But still, it still minimizes the amount of plastic packaging because they come in such large boxes and plastic. So those, you just bring your mason jar and you fill them up and you're done. So here in Colorado at our natural food store, they come already pre-packaged in plastic with the sticker and the price. So I will be working on communicating with leaders in that industry as far as the local one here, and talking about, hey, what are your thoughts on doing this a different way? It'd be worth it. And then they could, really advertise minimizing their waste with packaging. Another way to minimize your packaging waste is to buy in bulk just through things like Costco or Amazon. I know that some people have harsh feelings towards Amazon. I totally understand. I understand that they are not the best with their employees, but environmentally, it makes more sense for me to buy things in bulk through them than get it individually at a store. So it's, a catch-22, which is more important to you. Obviously, we buy local from local farmers as much as possible, especially farmers markets. You bring your own bag. You don't have to deal with packaging, especially for produce. So that's another great way. As far as Costco goes, I'm getting thousands of blueberries in one plastic bag instead of, just like 50 in a small plastic container. So although it's not zero waste, it's just moving towards that. I know there are some zero waste grocery stores across the country, especially mainly in large cities. I'm pretty sure LA has a couple, Los Angeles, and I know there's a couple. I think might be one in New York. So if you live in a larger city, you might be able to find a zero waste grocery store. Whether or not that's organic or chemical free is a whole nother thing. So when we're trying to live a sustainable life, we're kind of always weighing our options, doing the best we can, and just leading by example. So that is one thing you can do, is buy in bulk at Costco. Costco is really great to their employees. They have a really great business model. As far as I've read and heard from people, is that they are a really great company. They source as local as possible. They have a huge organic distribution that is growing, and that is really saved our family and minimized our packaging. So with zero waste, it's always a little interesting because you get into the conversation about recycling. So a lot of things that we think we are recycling actually don't get recycled. So the first step is to actually check your provider's website for recycling and see what their requirements are, what number plastics, whether it's 1, 2, 5, 7, and which of those they actually do recycle. So, for example, let's say they don't recycle plastic number 5. Well, then you might either want to avoid it or make some crafts into it, or find a place. A lot of times if you research in your area, there are places that will take them, or things like preschools and public schools. They love that stuff. You can get your local art teacher and ask, hey, would this be helpful for you? things like cardboard. Even though most recycling places actually do recycle cardboard, if you have an abundance of it, I know a lot of teachers and art, specifically art teachers, but I know when I was a teacher, I would send letters home and say, hey, we're doing this really neat project. We're making a guitar. I need Kleenex boxes and paper towel rolls. So the cardboard roll part. So there's some really great ways to recycle that way and get a second life for them. So with your recycling, for example, I looked into our local recycling plant, and they require that all the plastic and glass and any food container is washed out. That is a bit tricky for us because we don't have a garbage disposal. So we have to be really mindful about it and, get like a spatula to kind of like get out as much as we can before actually washing it, so we're not getting a bunch of food particles just sitting in our gray water. So that is something to think about as well. So definitely check out your local recycling because they do have some restrictions. So again, that's where the zero waste movement comes in, is that you are just eliminating the waste to begin with. So you don't have to worry since a lot of these things can't be recycled. Something to think about too that is just a really huge thing that nobody thinks about is your garbage bags. So using plastic garbage bags, that a lot of the stuff in the garbage bag can compost, but it's not going to because it's in a plastic bag. So eliminating plastic bags for your garbage is huge. What are the alternatives? Well, this is where it gets a little complicated. We've used paper bags in the past, but again, that's a resource. So we've tried using no bags, but that can get really messy and tricky, and then I have to use water and paper towels to clean out the garbage anyway. So it's kind of, again, we're all just trying to figure out the best way to go about this that creates the least waste. So either paper bags from the grocery store to give them a second life. Of course, we normally just bring our own bag, but when we were using paper bags as garbage bags and recycling bags, because the great thing about using paper bags for recycling, especially when you have the recycling where they all go in one bin, is really nice because the bag it was in was also recyclable. So it worked out really great for us. Now we have to separate everything, so I actually just use totes and then dump them into the correct recycling facility bin. With your garbage bags, there's also compostable garbage bags. Be careful with this because there's a big difference between a lot of the brands. So you really want to look at what they use for the compostable garbage bags, because some of them will actually do more damage. I've done a bunch of research on this because I currently got hired for a composting toilet company that uses compostable bags. And there are some studies showing that compostable bags are worse. I don't know that I really believe in that because they do compost at some point. But I think their argument was what chemicals are actually in the compostable bag that are getting into the ground and the water. So definitely take a look and try to find compostable bags that are made from the most earth materials that you can find. I'm pretty sure ours is made from like corn and something else. I'll put the link in the description. I'm pretty sure they're called bio bags. But I'm always researching, trying to find something better. But we currently are in a location where we have to use compostable trash bags because of our situation with sharing a garbage bin. So we can't just have everything sort of getting all over their garbage bin because it's theirs. So there really is no one answer. I will continue to research, and if I come up with anything, I'll link them on our Facebook group, Sustainable Living Podcast. That was our way of trying to minimize waste. As far as food containers, this is where it gets super tricky. Even when we did our bulk meat, they still came in like individualized like plastic wraps. So there is this whole issue of food safety. So the future of this is they can make plastic with mushrooms, I think, and for sure hemp. So there are ways to get around this. It's just getting these industries the support they need, because again, it all comes down to money. So the oil industry with plastic, they have a lot of lobbying, they have a lot of money to throw into it, throw into studies and testing and creating a product. Whereas, hemp and mushrooms and other biodegradable products, they don't have that money cash flow. So anything we can do to support them. I know I was recently talking with like a hemp company and they were saying their biggest thing is getting the money to do the tests, to have scientists testing these products to make sure they're safe and they really do what they need to do, and getting all the requirements that come along with creating a product. It all costs money. So anything you can do to get to the local sustainability expos. I'm actually going to one. Actually, I have 3 lined up, sustainable living expos here in Colorado. So I'm happy to support that and support the people there and, get the word out about their products, and hopefully some podcasts too with some of these amazing companies and people trying to really create a zero waste environment. Those are some ways you can get involved as well, is really find the companies, try to support them, even if it's not purchasing them, just, helping them with advertising. Hey, check out this cool product I found. So even that, posting it on your Facebook, your Instagram, talking with friends like, oh, I found this amazing product made out of, this really great biodegradable product. So that's a way to really help out these companies. With kids, the reason it gets a little tricky is all their toys are wrapped in so much plastic, right? And paper and, those little zip ties and all that stuff. So the way to get around that is to get used toys or swap with friends. There's a ton of really great local mommy swaps and things. So check that out in your local area. There's Facebook groups. You can just Google. I know there's some on Craigslist. So swapping toys, selling toys, used toys, of course, and that's a really great way. I use Facebook Marketplace a lot. We actually just downsized. My son outgrew a lot of his truck toys. Now he's approaching 5. We are, for a very fair price, we are selling his trucks bulk. So people are getting 10 trucks for the price of 1. So that's a really great way to be fair about it and really move the zero waste movement forward so we don't have to deal with all the packaging that comes with it. I forgot to mention earlier with the food with zero waste and packaging, of course, the best way to do it is to grow your own food, because then you're ensuring you don't have any packaging. And also, we talked about in several podcasts getting together with neighbors and making sure we're all growing different things. So even if you have 3 neighbors with a garden, make sure you have a variety of food so you each are getting different things. Like, so for example, let's say you're focusing on tomatoes, zucchini, cucumber, and kale. Then the next neighbor is focusing on broccoli, cauliflower, peppers. And then the other neighbor is focusing on lettuce and sunflower seeds, or, maybe they want to do some fruits and things depending on where you're located, or maybe they have a greenhouse. So really spreading out and making sure that you can all have a variety of food, and then come winter, you freeze it. So that has been our strategy, is freezing. I know a lot of people love to do canning. Of course, that requires some sort of receptacle. So a lot of people can do it in mason jars. Just be a little careful with that as far as like them breaking when they come out. Don't heat them up too quick. Unfortunately, the only option we had for freezing was plastic bags. And of course, from non-toxic standpoint, I don't like that. So I will be looking into other options here next year when we have a garden for freezing for the winter. But we do have a tiny house sized fridge. Unfortunately, the plastic bags do really stack really well and you can get all the air bubbles out and everything, but I do reuse those. So I can reuse them every year. I haven't had issues so far with things breaking and things. So I have been able to reuse those bags. Something else to think about with zero waste is your cleaning supplies. Another great thing about Minnesota food cooperatives is they had a place where you could refill things like Dr. Bronner's soap or white vinegar, baking soda. So really try to connect with your natural food store and see if there are ways to do that. Or again, buying in bulk, because, a lot of times I'll get it in bulk from Costco, because here in Colorado, we haven't been able to really find those stores, those natural food stores with bulk. But it was a really great way for us in the meantime to minimize waste, because again, you're buying in bulk, so it's less packaging, so I don't have to keep buying it. So cleaning supplies are a really great thing, and I know we've talked about in other podcasts. That's why I use white vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, and Dr. Bronner's, because I can find those things in bulk, and it's really affordable and sustainable organic products that are safe for the environment. So that's another way that you can kind of minimize the waste in your home. When it comes to hygiene and beauty, I know there are some companies that use like recycled makeup containers, or their containers are made out of recycled material, or you can send them in and they'll refill it for you. So those are some other things to research and find with makeup especially. I know that that's available. Some things, you can't do that with, like eyeliner and things, but there are specifically, I know the eye powders, a lot of times you can resend those in, or they're made out of recycled material, or you can recycle them. And again, recycling isn't necessarily the answer, because a lot of them, you can only recycle it once or twice. And there's a lot of restrictions on that, but it's at least a step in the right direction. And being able to refill your makeup with the same container is a really great option to send it in and bring it back. And I know there are a lot of companies popping up really advertising that as kind of their, hey, go with us because this is how we run business. So that's a great option as well. And to conclude and finish up, I just wanted to give you guys hope. I know it can seem super overwhelming, but just remember, every little step counts. Don't get overwhelmed and try to do it all at once. It does take time. It does take commitment. So just take little steps, even as little as checking with your recycling company, or buying used clothes, or making sure that you can reuse your containers for things, or seeing if a local artist or teacher could use the supplies again. So just try one thing at a time. Take your time and look at Instagram and Facebook and look at blogs of people doing this. And maybe one type of zero waste really resonates with you. And maybe then next time you search, there's another thing that really resonates with you. So try to take it slow and steady so you don't get overwhelmed. I know a lot of people can get burned out from trying to do it all at once. So I do want to encourage you that I'm not perfect. I have gone through phases of really good at zero waste and then other times not so great. So be patient with yourself. We're doing the best we can, and just find the things that work with you and work with your family that you can sustain long term. So check out the zero waste movement. It's really fun. There's some really amazing people out there doing really big things. So best wishes on this amazing journey, and may abundance flow to you with ease. May you follow your bliss and live the life you always dreamed of.
I want to very much echo the words of Emily. Be gentle to yourself. Be nice to yourself. I have a personality where I want to be very, how do you say it? Just 100% with everything. So if somebody says zero waste, in my mind, that means nothing at all. And I can create guilt around falling short of my goals. So just a little word of warning from somebody who has gone into looking at people's blogs and just feeling, oh, I'm not good enough. Always remember that we're all on a journey, and some people are willing to do without a lot of things. And I myself consider myself a very reluctant consumer, but there are times where I will buy something even though it has a plastic wrapping. And I think as consumers, this is something where we can start writing, or maybe not start, maybe just continue writing to companies and say, I really like your product, but could you package it differently? Could you find a way that it's easier recyclable? As always, we think that you guys have so much wisdom and so much knowledge. So we would love to hear from you. What are your tips? What do you do to reduce the waste in your house? What is your reality? What have you found? I know we talked about, using used things, not buying new, but that's not always possible. have you found ways, even if you're not in a big city? And I think Emily really pointed it out. If you're in a big city, it's much easier to go to the refill stores. They exist. It doesn't exist everywhere. So what are your hacks if you're in an environment which is not conducive to having the alternatives available? What do? Let us know. By email, sustainablelivingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook under Sustainable Living Podcast. We both have a group and a page. So we would love to see you in the group. And then, of course, you find us on Patreon. We're wishing you a wonderful week. Bye for now.